I opened my eyes and frowned. The bright lights above me hurt. I blinked several times and whispered, "Olivia?" A nurse gasped, "Oh my God, he's awake!" Another nurse rushed toward the door. "Call Dr. Sarah, hurry!" I tried to sit up, but my arm shook. "What's happening?" I asked. "Why am I in the hospital? How long was I asleep?" Nobody answered. Doctors rushed inside. A woman in a white coat smiled through tears. "I'm Dr. Sarah. Ethan, can you hear me?" "Of course I can hear you. What happened after the accident? Did Olivia make it? Where's my son Noah?" The room became silent. I laughed nervously. "Come on, stop joking. They should be here already." Dr. Sarah pulled a chair beside my bed. "Ethan, I need you to stay calm." "I am calm. Just tell me where my family is." She took a slow breath. "You were involved in a serious car accident." "I know that. I remember the headlights, the crash, then everything went black." I rubbed my forehead. "So why is everyone acting like this? I only slept one night." Dr. Sarah looked down. "No, Ethan." "What do you mean?" "You've been unconscious for 10 years. I stared at her. "No." "I'm sorry." "No." "The medical records." I said no. My voice echoed through the room. "That's impossible." I tried to stand, but my legs collapsed beneath me. "I can't even walk." "Your muscles became weak after such a long coma," Dr. Sarah said gently. "It will take time." I looked at my hands. They look different. They've changed with time. I touched my face. My beard. "We kept you clean during your treatment." My heart pounded. "My parents. They're alive." Relief flooded through me. "I want to see them." "You will." "And Olivia?" Dr. Sarah stayed quiet. "And Noah?" She still didn't answer. Why won't anyone answer me? I looked around the room. Every face avoided my eyes. Tears filled mine. "Please, somebody tell me they're okay." The door opened slowly. An older couple stepped inside. I stared at them. "Dad?" His hair had turned almost completely gray. "Mom?" Deep wrinkles covered her face. My mother burst into tears. "My baby." She hugged me carefully. I froze. 10 years. They had grown old while I was sleeping. I never even got to say goodbye to the life I remembered. I looked at my father. What happened to my family? He lowered his head. Before he could answer, another woman entered the room. She covered her mouth as tears rolled down her cheeks. I recognized her after a long moment. "Grace?" She nodded. I forced a weak smile. "You came with Olivia?" She walked closer until she stood beside my bed. Her hands trembled as she reached for mine. "I'm so sorry, Ethan." My chest tightened. "Where are they?" Grace closed her eyes, trying to stop crying. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely a whisper. "Ethan, they all moved on." I couldn't sleep after Grace's words. The next morning, I stood beside the hospital bed with trembling legs. "I want to leave," I said. Dr. Sarah nodded. "You're still weak, Ethan." "I've already lost 10 years. I won't lose another day." Grace picked up my small bag. "I'll drive." We walked outside together. The sunlight felt strange against my skin. I stared at the parking lot. So many electric cars. Grace smiled sadly. The world kept moving. I looked around as we drove through town. That grocery store is gone. It closed years ago. The movie theater? Now it's a shopping center. I watched people paying with their phones. What are they doing? They're paying digitally. I laughed bitterly. I feel like I woke up on another planet. Grace didn't answer. After several minutes, I whispered, "Take me home." Her hands tightened around the steering wheel. "Ethan, my home." She sighed and changed direction. When we reached my old street, I frowned. Everything looks different. The neighborhood changed. She stopped the car. I looked at my house. No. The front yard had been redesigned. The walls were painted another color. Children's bicycles stood near the garage. A family I had never seen walked through the front door. I stared in silence. "They live here now?" I asked. Grace nodded. "Your parents sold the house after several years." I couldn't breathe. "So, I don't even have a home anymore." "I'm sorry." I closed my eyes. "What about Olivia?" Grace remained silent. "Please." She finally spoke. "She waited for years." "How many?" "6." My chest tightened. "Then?" "She met someone." I shook my head. "No. They got married 4 years ago." I laughed without joy. "No, she wouldn't." "Ethan." She promised she'd always wait." "I know." "What about Noah?" Grace looked at me with tears in her eyes. "He was still little. He remembers me." "He remembers, but life kept moving." "What does that mean?" She swallowed. "He calls someone else Dad." The words hit harder than the accident ever had. "No. I'm sorry. Noah wouldn't do that. He was raised by Daniel. I don't care who Daniel is. He helped raise him. I am his father." "I know." I covered my face. "I need to see them." "I don't think that's a good idea." "I have to know." Grace drove without another word. A few minutes later, she parked across from a beautiful house. "They live here." I looked through the large living room window. Olivia stood there laughing. She looked older, but I knew that smile instantly. A man wrapped an arm around her shoulders. "Daniel?" Then a teenage boy ran into the room. "Noah?" He had grown taller than I ever imagined. I reached toward the window with shaking fingers. "My son." Daniel smiled and opened his arms. Noah hugged him tightly. Then I heard the word that broke what remained of my heart. "Dad." I stepped backward. Tears blurred my vision. "Let's go," I whispered. Grace looked at me. "They didn't see you." "I know." I turned away before anyone inside noticed that the man they had buried in their memories was finally standing outside. I couldn't walk away forever. The next morning, I looked at Grace. "I need to see them." She searched my face. "Are you sure?" "No." "Then why go?" "Because I'll regret it if I don't." She nodded. "I'll wait in the car." I walked to the front door with shaking hands. My finger hovered over the doorbell. Finally, I pressed it. A few seconds later, the door opened. Olivia stood in front of me. She stared without blinking. Her lips parted. Ethan? I couldn't answer. Neither could she. Tears filled her eyes. She grabbed the door frame to keep herself from falling. This can't be real. It's me. She covered her mouth. I know. I buried you in my heart. I never wanted to leave. Neither of us moved. Neither of us knew what to say. A voice came from inside. Olivia? Who's at the door? A man walked into the hallway. Daniel? He stopped the moment he saw me. His eyes widened, but he stayed calm. Who are you? He asked quietly. Olivia whispered. He's Ethan. Daniel looked at her. The Ethan? She nodded. Silence filled the house. Finally, I spoke. I'm not here to cause trouble. Daniel studied my face. I've heard about you. I'm sure you have. I never imagined we'd meet. Neither did I. He stepped closer to Olivia without blocking the doorway. It wasn't a challenge. It was protection. I understood immediately. This was his family now, not mine. Daniel spoke gently. Would you like to come inside? I hesitated. I don't know if I belong there. Before anyone answered, footsteps echoed on the stairs. A teenage boy appeared. He looked between us. Mom? Olivia quickly wiped her tears. It's okay. The boy frowned. Who is he? I couldn't breathe. He had my eyes. He had my smile. But he looked at me like I was a complete stranger. He walked closer. I've seen your face. I forced a weak smile. You have? He nodded slowly. I think in old pictures. Olivia started crying again. I looked at Daniel. He didn't interrupt. He simply stood beside Noah. Not because he hated me, because he loved the boy I had lost. For the first time, I understood the truth. Nobody had stolen my life. Nobody had planned to replace me. The world had simply refused to stop turning while I slept. Olivia whispered, I'm so sorry. I shook my head. You don't have to apologize. I waited as long as I could. I know. I never stopped wondering if you'd wake up. I believe you. Daniel looked at me. I never wanted to take your place. You didn't. My voice cracked. Life chose for all of us. The room fell silent again. Noah looked from me to Daniel, then back to me. His eyes were filled with questions. He took one careful step forward. His voice was quiet. Are you really my father? A week after leaving Olivia's house, I sat across from Grace inside a small cafe. I stirred my coffee without drinking it. I've accepted that I can't get my old life back. Grace nodded. But something still doesn't make sense. What is it? I owned a business. You did. I had savings. You did. I had life insurance. You did. So where did everything go? Grace looked uncomfortable. Michael handled everything while you were in the coma. My brother? Your parents trusted him. I frowned. He always promised he'd protect me. Grace sighed. Maybe you should ask him yourself. That afternoon, I knocked on Michael's front door. He smiled the moment he saw me. Ethan. He hugged me tightly. It's good to see you. I stepped back. I have some questions. Of course. We sat in his living room while his wife, Linda, brought coffee. I'm glad you're alive, Linda said softly. Thank you. After she left, I looked at Michael. What happened to my company? He rubbed his neck. I sold it. You sold it? There was no choice. Without asking me? You were unconscious. What about my savings? They paid medical bills. My insurance money? That disappeared quickly. I stared at him. All of it? Ethan, 10 years is a long time. His answers felt rehearsed. I want the paperwork. He forced a smile. Why? Because it's my business. You should focus on recovering. I asked for the paperwork. His smile disappeared. I'll see what I can find. When I left, Grace was waiting in her car. How did it go? I don't believe him. I didn't either. The next morning, Grace introduced me to an accountant she trusted. He spent hours studying old financial records. Finally, he looked at me. Something isn't right. What do you mean? There are several large withdrawals. Medical expenses? He shook his head. No clear explanation. My stomach tightened. Can you trace them? Some went into private accounts. Whose accounts? We're still checking. Days later, we visited another office to request legal copies of my business documents. The lawyer handed me a folder. I opened it slowly. My heart stopped. The final sale agreement carried my signature. I stared at it. I never signed this. The lawyer frowned. It's been on file for years. Look at the date. He did. I was in a coma. Silence filled the room. Grace leaned closer. Ethan. I pointed at the page. Someone forged my name. The lawyer's expression changed immediately. That's a serious accusation. It's the truth. He gathered more documents. Every signature looked like mine. But none of them belonged to me. My hands began shaking. My brother sold everything. Grace placed a hand on my shoulder. I think we finally know what happened. I whispered. He stole my life while I couldn't fight back. That evening, I drove straight to Michael's house. He opened the door with an annoyed expression. You should have called. I held up the documents. Explain these. His face hardened. I already did. No. I pointed at the forged signature. I was unconscious. He crossed his arms. You needed someone to make decisions. You forged my name. I saved this family. You robbed me. His voice became cold. Careful. I trusted you. And I carried responsibilities you couldn't. You stole my company. I did what had to be done. You stole my money. You can't prove that. I will. He laughed. The sound made my blood run cold. The morning after confronting Michael, I stood inside the rehabilitation center, gripping the parallel bars. Dr. Sarah smiled. Ready? I laughed bitterly. No. Good. Most brave people aren't. I took one step. Pain shot through my legs. I nearly fell. I can't. You can. It feels impossible. It felt impossible to wake up too. I tried again. Another step. Another wave of pain. I clenched my teeth. My body doesn't even feel like mine. It will, she said. Give yourself time. I already lost 10 years. I know. Every exercise reminded me how much I had missed. Every step forward reminded me of the years I could never reclaim. One afternoon, I collapsed onto a bench beside an older man. He chuckled. Rough day? You could say that. I'm Harrison. I'm Ethan. He extended his hand. I shook it. You look like someone carrying the whole world. I might be. He smiled. I used to own 3 restaurants. What happened? A fire destroyed everything. I'm sorry. My wife died the same year. I looked at him. How did you survive that? I stopped asking why. What did you ask instead? What now? His words stayed with me. What now? Not, why me? Not, what if? Just, what now? Over the following weeks, Mr. Harrison became my closest friend. Whenever I wanted to quit, he laughed. If an old man like me can keep walking, you have no excuse. I smiled for the first time in days. You're impossible. So are you. One afternoon, a young woman sat beside me in the therapy room. You always look sad. I looked at her. I'm Emma. Ethan. I've seen you here every day. I don't exactly have anywhere else to be. She nodded gently. I know that feeling. You do? My accident ended my dance career. I'm sorry. I cried for a year. And now? Now I teach children instead. You found a new dream. I found a new reason to wake up. Her words reminded me of Mr. Harrison's. Life wasn't asking me to recover the past. It was asking me to build something new. A few days later, I finished therapy and walked outside. Someone stood beside my car. Olivia. She looked nervous. I hope I'm not bothering you. No. I just wanted to see how you're doing. I'm learning to walk again. She smiled through tears. I always knew you were stubborn. I learned from you. We sat together on a nearby bench. Neither of us spoke for a while. Finally, she whispered, I'm sorry. You've already said that. I still feel guilty. You shouldn't. I promised forever. You kept your promise longer than anyone could expect. She looked at the ground. I visited your hospital room every week. I stared at her. You did? For years. You never stopped coming? I talked to you even when you couldn't answer. My throat tightened. I didn't know. I kept hoping you'd open your eyes. I looked at her. When did you stop? The day Noah asked why I kept crying over someone he couldn't remember. Silence settled between us. She wiped away another tear. I never stopped loving you. I know. I just couldn't stop living. I nodded slowly. For the first time since waking up, I truly understood. She hadn't replaced me. She had survived me. And somehow, Accepting that truth hurt less than fighting it. As we stood to leave, she squeezed my hand. I'm glad you're alive, Ethan. For the first time in years, I believed I might someday be glad too. Grace called me early that morning. Ethan, can you meet me right away? Her voice sounded excited. What happened? I found it. Found what? The proof. 20 minutes later, I sat across from her in a lawyer's office. She pushed a thick folder toward me. Open it. I flipped through the pages. Bank statements. Property records. Transfer receipts. My hand started shaking. These accounts, they belong to Michael. I kept reading. There are hundreds of thousands of dollars. Grace nodded. He moved your business money into companies he secretly controlled. I looked at another document. My signature. It's fake. So every paper was built on forged documents. I leaned back in silence. I wasn't imagining it. No. He really stole everything. The lawyer cleared his throat. We also found emails. What do they say? They show Michael telling several people that your recovery was impossible. I closed my eyes. He wanted everyone to give up on me, so no one would question his decisions. That afternoon, my parents agreed to meet at Grace's house. Michael arrived with Linda. The moment he saw the documents on the table, his smile disappeared. Dad spoke first. Michael, explain this. He glanced at me. So this is your plan. I stayed calm. My plan is the truth. Mom picked up a bank statement. Did you take Ethan's money? Michael shrugged. I managed it. Answer the question. I did what was necessary. Grace slammed another document onto the table. Necessary? She pointed at the forged signatures. You committed fraud. Michael laughed. You think a few papers prove anything? Linda looked at the documents. Then she looked at him. Michael, he avoided her eyes. You told me the business had debts. It did. You told me there wasn't any money left. There wasn't. Grace shook her head. That's a lie. She handed Linda another report. Linda read every line. Color drained from her face. You bought the lake house with Ethan's money? Michael remained silent. You told me it came from investments. Still, no answer. Tears filled Linda's eyes. Tell me you didn't do this. He finally spoke. I protected this family. You stole from your own brother. I earned it. Mom burst into tears. How could you? Michael pointed at me. He was gone. I was alive. You were never coming back. I did. You weren't supposed to. The room became silent. Dad looked at Michael with disappointment. I trusted you. You had no choice. I had a son. You had a burden. Before anyone could respond, the front door opened. Daniel walked inside. I stared at him. What are you doing here? I heard what happened. Michael scoffed. Oh, look who's here. Daniel ignored him and faced me. I need to say something. I nodded. He took a slow breath. I never wanted your place. I know. I couldn't replace you. My chest tightened. I could only raise your son. I looked into his eyes. For the first time, I saw no rivalry. Only honesty. I stepped closer. Thank you. A few days after Michael's arrest, my phone rang. Hello? A nervous voice answered. Hi, it's Noah. I smiled before I realized it. Hi. I hope I'm not bothering you. Never. There was a long silence. Finally, he asked, Can we meet? I'd like that. We met at a quiet park the next afternoon. He stood with his hands in his pockets. I didn't know what to wear. I laughed. I've missed 10 years. I wouldn't have noticed. He smiled. You're funny. I forgot how. We sat on a bench. He looked at me carefully. Can I ask you something? You can ask me anything. What were you like before the accident? I thought for a moment. I worked too much. He laughed softly. Mom said that. I also loved camping. Really? I promised to take you fishing when you got older. His smile faded. We never went. I know. I'm sorry. You don't have to apologize. He looked at the lake. I wish I remembered more. So do I. Over the next few weeks, Noah visited often. Sometimes we walked. Sometimes we shared lunch. Sometimes we simply talked. One afternoon he asked, What was your biggest dream? I smiled. Watching you grow up. He looked down. I'm sorry you missed it. I missed many birthdays. You missed my first soccer game. I know. My graduation is next year. I looked at him. I won't miss that. He smiled. I'd like that. Another day, he asked quietly, Do you remember the accident? I remember headlights. Were you scared? Not until I woke up. Why? Because losing 10 years was harder than losing one night. He nodded. I think I understand. One weekend, I invited him to my apartment. I found something. What is it? I opened an old storage box. Inside were photographs, birthday cards, tiny shoes, and a stack of DVDs. These are home videos. He picked one up. Can we watch them? We spent hours laughing. On the screen, I held him as a baby. He reached for my face. I made funny noises until he giggled. Noah laughed. I used to have so much hair. So did I. Another video showed me pushing him on a swing. I don't remember this. I do. I wish I could. I placed a hand on his shoulder. We'll make new memories. He looked at me. I'd like that. Weeks turned into months. The conversations became easier. The silence became comfortable. One afternoon, we worked together to build a small bookshelf for my apartment. He held a piece of wood while I reached for a screwdriver. Without thinking, he smiled and said, Dad, can you hand me that? The room became completely still. His eyes grew wide. He quickly covered his mouth. I didn't mean... I couldn't speak. Neither could he. For several seconds, we simply looked at each other. Then I smiled. He smiled too. No apology was needed. No explanation could have made that moment more meaningful. One word had quietly crossed the distance between us. It wasn't forced. It wasn't expected. It simply happened. For the first time since opening my eyes in that hospital room, I felt that my life wasn't beginning again because I had recovered my past. It was beginning because my son and I were finally creating a future together. Months passed before Michael's trial ended. Grace sat beside me inside the courtroom. The judge looked at Michael. After reviewing the financial evidence, forged documents, and witness testimony, this court finds you guilty. Michael lowered his head. For the first time, he had nothing to say. As the officers led him away, Linda quietly cried. "I loved him," she whispered. I nodded. "I know. He destroyed our family. I wish he had made different choices." She looked at me through tears. "I'm sorry for everything. You don't owe me an apology." When I walked outside, I felt no victory. Only peace. A few days later, Olivia asked to meet me. We sat at the same park where Noah and I had first talked. She smiled gently. "I wanted to thank you." "For what?" "For making this easier." I looked at her. "I finally understand." She waited. "I love you." Tears filled her eyes. "I know. But loving someone doesn't always mean asking them to come back." She reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "Thank you. You belong with Daniel." She nodded. "He gave Noah a home. And he gave you one too." "I'm grateful." "So am I." We stood together one last time. Then we hugged. Not as husband and wife, but as two people who had survived the same tragedy in different ways. Weeks later, Daniel visited me. "I've been thinking," he said. "About what?" "Noah doesn't have to choose." I smiled. "He never should. We're both important to him." "I agree." Daniel extended his hand. "Friends?" I shook it. "Friends." From that day forward, Noah celebrated birthdays with both families. School events became easier. Holiday dinners became warmer. Instead of fighting over the years we had lost, we focused on the years still waiting for us. Dr. Sarah eventually offered me a new opportunity. "We need someone to speak with coma patients after they wake up. You think I can help?" "I know you can." I accepted immediately. Every time I walked into a hospital room, I recognized the fear in their eyes. I smiled and said the words I once needed to hear. "Your life isn't over." Mr. Harrison laughed when he heard about my new job. "I told you to ask, what now?" "You were right." Emma opened her own rehabilitation studio and invited me to speak there every month. Grace smiled more than I had seen in years. "I'm proud of you," she said.